this.
Haven't done one in this room in a while. What's going on, guys? So, something that is going to be a very newbie topic of what I'm about to talk about, because many people would consider this very newbie. So it's probably going to sound very newbie. But more chaos support. And you're probably wondering, like, why the hell would you want more chaos support? And I'm gonna tell you why right now, and why more chaos support is good. It's a good thing to get more chaos support. So the only good chaos cards we have right now is Chaos Sorcerer, which is at 3, by the way. BLS, and that's pretty much it. Now there are other cards that work out with chaos cards, but those are like pretty much the main cards that work with it. And Chaos Emperor Dragon, but obviously that's not legal for reasons. And why I'm saying we should need more support, because it seems like a very specific archetype, and I know there's kind of things that might be coming out that are kind of similar to it, but those are like the main cards. You remove a light monster, remove a dark monster, you can use this effect. And there should be more of that. I mean, we also have those 2 dragons that you can remove a dark special summon, you can remove a chaos. And we also have Light Pulsar and Dark Flare Dragon, but they're not Light Pulsar. Is it Light Pulsar? Yeah. Light Pulsar, that, yes, they're chaos and they're alright, but they pretty much play off of each other in dragons than they do more light and dark. Well, Light Pulsar plays more off light and dark, but their abilities aren't anything special. And while if there's more chaos cards that come out, I'm sure we would still play those cards, Light Pulsar and Dark Flare and the other cards that you banish to Dark Monster. I forget their names always, but those 2 dragons. And then you have Chaos Sorcerer BLS, but there needs to be more. And I'm gonna tell you what more. We need to make it into more of an archetype for it to be playable, even though I think it would be very powerful. I have some ideas. So first off, like a searcher for chaos monsters. You have this card, you can add some other monster to this or whatever. I know that sounds bad, but say like when this card gets banished, this card you can add one banished monster from your grave back to your hand or something like that. So basically, like, when you banish this monster, you can get a different monster that isn't his name back. So if you banished an Eclipse Wyvern, not an Eclipse Wyvern, a Light Pulsar Dragon and something else to bring out BLS, you can now bring back some other type of monster, either dark or light, that is previously banished. Like, a monster like that would be very significant. You play 3 of those, that could really help you out in your deck. Maybe monsters that aren't as powerful as BLS, like a Banishing and then attack twice, but maybe you take it at one darker light, and you can just pop a monster, or pop 2 cards, because popping's not as powerful as it once was. You can maybe destroy spells and traps or something like that, and then have some other effect, like add a light monster with so many points down below or something. And now, a lot of these decks could probably be used in other decks, which is why Chaos has probably not gotten a lot of support, because it's something that you could, even if it made an archetype for itself, it could be splashed into other decks way too easily. But it's something that I feel like we need, because while Lightsworns and then Lightsworn Chaos, there hasn't actually been a good Chaos deck. Now, you could argue that Chaos Dragons, with those other dragons and other cards you can play, is a very alright build, and I would somewhat agree with you, but it's still not chaosy enough. I mean, yeah, 3 Chaos Sorcerers are dope. You can target a monster and banish it, and that's pretty cool. But why can't we get a card that's maybe a little weaker than even Chaos Sorcerer and be like, target 1 card, destroy it? So you could also do, or target 2 cards and destroy it, and it's not banishing, but it's still popping. You could do it for like back row, or even take out some pendulums or something like that to get out of your way. And we don't really have those cards, and I don't see why it would be a big problem to have those cards. And like I said, we could also have it where you gain a card that could add them, something that would make the deck altogether more consistent as a whole, instead of necessarily just going off of mills to hopefully get your cards in the graveyard to do it. You can maybe have like a spell or trap card for them that says like, out of your deck or something, or in your hand, discard 2 lights and or 2 darks, or 1 light and 1 dark monster, draw 2 cards or something like that. Some type of draw power for Chaos is specifically, not necessarily, oh, you have to mill 10 cards to get these cards into your grave. When like, no, you can play the spell card, mill, discard a light and a dark, and you can then draw 2 cards, and then you can use them for your effect later. I feel like that'd be a very interesting card to see in decks. Now, I know people's major concern would be that these cards could be splashed into other things, especially if more Chaos support came out. There's definitely some other decks that could be splashed in that play a significant amount of darks, and you could play the light half, or if it plays a significant amount of lights, you could play the dark Chaos cards, depending on how many they came out with. But all in all, I don't see that would be a real problem with it, and I feel like it's something that we could have more, and that way too, people who played lights and darks in their deck, but not necessarily a Chaos deck, can have more splashable cards. Because right now, so many decks are archetype specific that there aren't that many splashable cards. I mean, you can still have effect failures and hand traps that people play, Maxine, all that, and but you don't actually have like cards that flow with the deck, but aren't necessarily part of the archetype. The last thing we really had like that was like Dragon Rulers, and that only worked for Fire, Wind, Water, and Earth. So it doesn't really go with that as well, and this would be something that would help out other decks, which doesn't really happen anymore in the game. There's just not cards that are like, you know what, this card can flow in a bunch of different decks, but it's not a hand trapper. It just helps out that attribute or monster type, which, like I said, you just don't see many of them anymore. Now, BLS is strong, but also in this part of the game, people are always like, oh, BLS is so strong. BLS is not really, if you think about it, overpowered anymore, or even a card that I would even say would ever be up for the ban list in our format, because, first of all, I'm not saying it's not played, but it's definitely not played as significantly as it once was. And secondly, it's still a really great card, but in the grand scheme of everything else that we have going on, it's not that amazing right now anymore. So, with it not being as amazing, if they came out with more Chaos support cards, having BLS be a little bit more viable and easily to come out, depending on what cards would come out if they made more Chaos support, still wouldn't be that huge of a factor, because I know people used to argue, Chaos Super Dragon's too powerful, and BLS is way too good to have more like support for the deck, when really BLS is not that great. It's like, I mean, Chaos Sorcerer's at 3. All BLS is a Chaos Sorcerer with higher attack that can attack twice. And while that effect is still great, it is nothing earth-shattering compared to the grand scheme of what other decks can do. BLS is still a cool card that you can throw it into other decks that might be able to throw off Lights and Darks, because sometimes people are like, oh, yeah, I didn't think you would be playing BLS. So it's a good tech, but in a whole, if you had an archetype and BLS was one of your boss monsters, it's not something earth-shattering to go against. Like, people have other decks that can counteract it. So it's not like having more Chaos support cards that are a little weaker than BLS would make this deck completely overpowered or significant. It could make it maybe a cool deck, but I don't think it would be something that would make everything go off the charts. Now, I know, like I said, this sounds like a very newbie discussion, but I think it's a discussion that hopefully something you should share out there to get Chaos's more support. There's something that has been left go for quite a while now, and I feel like it's time to think back to it. But that's just me. Let me know down below. I'll see you later. Peace.
Damn. Yeah.